నాకు పోస్ట్ ఇవ్వండి సార్.
సరే మొదలైంది ఇంకేది. Hello, good morning. Sorry, we are
Morning,
starting.
sir.
We are starting late today, and I'm sorry for the 5-minute delay because I had to travel to another place, and that took some time. Yesterday, 3rd December events we are going to discuss today. So, as you might know, for new arrivals in this daily review, COP28 is happening in Dubai for the past 4 days. This is the 4th day, but I'm reviewing December 3rd events. And yesterday, again, a lot of side events have happened, but at least there was a relief, by the, this was mentioned by several participants that the world leaders, because the heads of state, prime ministers, presidents were there. So a lot of security was there, and many people, in fact, could not enter the venue to participate in their regular discussions. So apart from that, yesterday it was a health day. That's the first time COP, the COP 27 COPs. Even though health is one of the discussion points, but there was never a health day declared. So COP28 president, he is, he's saying this is the first time we have given such importance to health in the COP negotiations. Now, this is the entrance to this Expo City. I found it very, not so attractive. There it looks artificial, completely artificial. So the building looks artificial. The frontage looks artificial, and even the intent seems to be artificial in the negotiation. So you're already aware. COP28 president, who is also the CEO of a oil company, there is criticism on him, and many people were circumspect about this COP28 seriously working on fossil fuels, because the COP28 president himself is from an oil company. So this conflict of interest issue is one, and then the intent has always been questioned. In fact, just 4 or 5 days back, BBC has brought out an expose saying that this Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, they intended to use these COP meetings to push for business deals. So that was denied, of course, by the COP28 president, Sultan Al Jaber. But it looks credible. And yesterday, in one of the meetings, what COP28 president said, I think it has revealed what kind of thinking he has now. Anyway, just to go to the World Climate Action Summit, there was this summit on December 1st and 2nd, and I'm just reporting. It was a late reporting. So France President Macron, he announced a lot of policies of French government. And I thought they are very significant because even though several, almost 100 plus heads of state have spoken in this World Climate Action Summit, I thought these policies very specific, and I think they are very ambitious as well, which is what COP28 has been expecting. So the France, they have announced that they will phase out coal by 2027. So by in the next 4 years, France is going to phase out coal, and he has announced that other G7 countries, France is part of G7 countries, group of 7 countries. So they also agreed to phase out coal by 2030. So this looks very positive announcement. And secondly, France has announced that they will double their energy efficiency target and triple its renewable energy capacity by 2030. Of course, I know there was this group of countries who announced that they will also, there was a declaration that they will triple their renewable energy capacity. But interestingly, France also said it will triple its nuclear energy capacity by 2050. So next 30 years, they are going to triple their nuclear energy capacity. In fact, France has been a major dependent on nuclear energy, but they scaled down in the last 20, 30 years. But now this announcement shows that they are going to again go back to nuclear energy, which as you know, yesterday we discussed, 20 countries have announced that nuclear energy is a clean form of energy. And if we want carbon emissions to decrease and, we need a clean energy source, they thought the nuclear energy is the best source for that. So this is again an alarming concern, and also indicative of how governments, especially the developed countries, are looking at the transformation which they keep talking about. The energy transition, which has always been a word used for the past several COPs. So now they are showing up that this transition is from a unclean energy, but again a burdensome energy source. Nuclear energy has a lot of negatives. The cost is very high. The nuclear waste is a huge burden, and it will be there for generations. And in the past, we have seen there are a lot of accidents. In fact, Japan, a nuclear industry has crippled because of the Fukuoka nuclear power plant accident, and they released radioactive waters into the sea. So there is already, this is not at all a new kind of source. We have experienced, the world has experienced in our 30, 40 years, the negative side of this nuclear energy. But now still the governments want to push this as a clean energy alternative. So that I think we need to engage with this, policy option, which is being pushed by the major developed countries. Now, on loss and damage, of course, France has announced $109 million to the L&D fund. And in addition, France announced 1.2 billion euros to Bangladesh, which has been facing sea level rise and climate disasters. So I think this is going to help them as part of the loss and damage fund. So that means that France has somewhere taken responsibility and is directly bilaterally helping Bangladesh. So people are hoping that developed countries will also give this bilateral finance to small island nations and developing countries which are facing new weather disasters arising out of climate change. Uh, then the other significant announcement is France is calling for a complete reform of Bretton Woods system of international finance. So you might know Bretton Woods institutions include International Monetary Fund and World Bank and International Financial Corporation. So these were established long back, and now France is calling for a reform because World Bank is known to be a more capitalistic and liberal institution, but essentially working only to promote developed country interests. So, and of course, now a lot of developing countries are under debt arising out of climate change disasters, COVID, and various other problems. So now the discussion on finance includes this debt recycling or debt related management of Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and many other countries. In fact, now China is also going into a debt spiral. So anyway, the basic point is World Bank has always been looked at as a development bank. But now Macron says we need to reform this and in tune with the expectations of finance in COP28 and all the COPs where climate finance is being discussed. Now there is another announcement made by France. They are working on new mechanisms of international taxation. That is basically this. I think many people feel, including some governments, that we need to have some taxation which can bring funds for climate finance. So France is working with Brazil to create that pathway. That's what he has announced. And there are a lot of inherent challenges when we are talking of international taxation, which helps climate finance. Then he has announced that they will organize a water and ocean summit in France in 2025. So 2 years down the line, along with Kazakhstan, they are going to organize a summit, which is again very significant because water is again water and oceans are a major carbon sink mechanisms, but they are not yet got the prominence it should be given. In fact, G20 has brought out some declaration. I can't remember. They said something about blue oceans initiative, something like that. Now, yesterday again, another, as I mentioned, it was a health day, but there was a declaration. It's called 28 UN Climate Change Conference Declaration on Climate Health, and it was signed by 123 countries, including US, UK, Germany, Australia, and European Union. So all the major developed countries have signed this declaration. Now, this declaration basically it was instigated by World Health Organization and UAE COP presidency, and India has not yet signed it. India was nowhere in the summit or even the discussions. In fact, yesterday, health ministers from different countries met, and this declaration was made in their presence. So, Indian health minister was not there, nor any Indian delegation was there. So, this declaration is again very significant from my point of view, is because the declaration encourages investment, sharing best practices, and assessing greenhouse gas emissions of health systems. So health systems are also generators of greenhouse gas emissions is being acknowledged here, and they want to reduce that by encouraging this investment. This is fine. I think all of us will encourage. Well, the second part and third part is very, very important. The declaration says that countries should implement a One Health approach that integrates people, animals, and the environment. Now, this One Health approach has been promoted by World Health Organization. In fact, in the past 2 years post COVID, WHO has been talking about this One Health. Basically, it is saying health is impacted by food, and food sector is contaminated by the way production is happening, the way it is transported. So the entire food and agriculture needs to be linked with the health outcomes. So that means the people, animals, and environment. Now, on the face of it, it looks very benign and a welcome kind of approach. But then, how a WHO, because of its track record of being influenced by private foundations like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, and various other foundations, they have been pushing industrial farming, and in fact, livestock farming, where stall-fed farms, livestock farms have been identified for very, very huge greenhouse gas emissions. But this approach does not, condemn that kind of farming. In fact, they want to, bring in more technology. So the advocates behind the One Health approach, they are talking of biotech animals, or genetically modified animals, genetic modification, gene editing. In fact, I know one company promoted by, shares of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They are talking of, modifying cows or pigs because these have been identified for producing methane. Then they are also doing research on lab meat. So when they are saying animals are cause of climate emissions, and animals, again, the entire meat sector is leading to unhealthy outcomes for the people. So they are talking of lab-based meat, artificial cultured meat, which is produced in a lab. So this is again a business model which they are trying to promote. So when they are doing One Health approach, they have all these ideas behind that One Health approach. Now, for the first time, climate change negotiation, this One Health approach has been introduced as a pathway to reduce carbon emissions. And that's again a cause of concern. In fact, again, my hackles were raised yesterday because the COP28 Director General, I forgot his name, but it's not the president, not the Sultan Al Jaber, but COP28 Director General. He said climate health agenda may find space in the cover text of COP28 if countries agree to it. So their cover text is basically the ultimate statement which comes out of every COP. So at the end of the COP28, maybe on 12th or 13th December, they will issue a consensual document that is called cover text. So this, I think the WHO and their cohorts, they want to push this climate health agenda prepared by them, and which include this One Health approach into cover text of COP28. So that will mean they have completed one round of acceptability to their approach in all the UN nations. In fact, they will probably come to other conventions. So UN General Assembly, in fact, last May, they issued a political statement saying that this One Health approach and the initiatives of WHO will be encouraged. So WHO systematically, strategically, and very conspiratorially, they are pushing the agenda, and WHO seems to be a power mongering institution within the UN space. And I have a lot of things to say because I've been monitoring what they are doing with the pandemic treaty and international health regulation. But what happened yesterday, and I think again on December 10th and 9th, they are going to have some more meetings on this health agenda in COP28. So I think definitely this is one of the serious concerns before us, apart from the nuclear energy pathway, which we have been discussing. Now, there have been a number of announcements yesterday on the, as I mentioned, at the Global Climate Action Summit. Uh, there was a task force on international taxation to enhance development and climate action. It was launched by France, Kenya, Barbados, and other countries. Now, this task force it basically wants to push for international taxation and some acceptability within the COP. Here, I think we need to look at Barbados. Barbados is a small island nation near West Indies, probably as part of West Indies conglomeration. Barbados PM, Prime Minister Mia Motley, has been very active since the Glasgow COP. In fact, she gave a very thunderous speech in the Glasgow, which was, widely shared and widely accepted. And she has been pushing for, on a finance track since then. So they initiated a Bridgetown initiative. So this Bridgetown initiative is about finance, and the Bridgetown initiative is talking about debt reforms. So basically, all these small island nations or developing countries or poor countries, they are in debts for several years. So they are saying we need to look at how to integrate this debt into finance or debt cancellation or debt management reforms. So several suggestions have been made through that Bridgetown initiative. So Barbados, a small country, is now playing a major role in a particular stream of thinking on climate finance. So I think we need to keep looking out for what they are going to do as part of this task force. So that the goal of this task force is gathering countries to join forces and work on identifying taxation options that have the potential to raise additional financing in an inclusive and equitable way. I'll come to the specific statement made by Barbados Prime Minister. And then yesterday there was another declaration. In fact, the day before also they made a declaration, UAE declaration on a global climate finance framework. So this framework initiative of UAE, so they are saying they have a 10-point roadmap for the future of climate finance. And as part of that, they have announced a Altera fund. So, and already $30 billion have been announced by UAE for this Altera fund. So again, this signifies that UAE wants to play a major role in climate finance, and but for what purpose and whether because because the UAE economy is built on oil and fossil fuels, there is a lot of suspicion about the initiatives taken by them and what they want to do using this. Now there is this demand, loss and damage fund is established, but there's a global stock take, as a part of Paris Agreement, there is a global stock take about the progress achieved from Paris Agreement goals. So there is now a demand that global stock take should include loss and damage. So basically linking the progress monitoring with the loss and damage, simply because, ultimately in the progress we are going to see who is taking responsibility, how much, and how far they are progressing in, achieving their ambitious goals to keep the global heating limit to 1.5 degrees. So I think this is again a very good, uh, demand, and probably this is going to be discussed as part of the negotiations. Now, yesterday, again, there was a faith pavilion where all faiths, different faiths have met. In fact, this is a culmination. They had 2, 3 summits before, and Pope was there. In fact, earlier Pope should have come, but he was not healthy. But ultimately, Pope Francis was there. So this faith, pavilion, the summit, they are saying loss and damage finance now. Then, like last COP, so we have seen that these heads of states are using private jets. And in fact, now this is happening in UAE, where a lot of the sheikhs and big influential amirs or Arabs are there. Private jets have usage has increased. So there was this study where they said when you want to reach the COP, which is the most carbon intensity modes of transport. And here you can see that it says private jet is the most, followed by commercial flight, petrol car. Petrol car, of course, is more than the commercial flight. Diesel car is a little less, but more than commercial flight. Then train, electric car, and a coach. So the public transport, has a very less carbon intensity, and private individualized mode of transport is very expensive. There was this cartoon which was it's like an animal farm, COP28. So you have wolves and sheep, and probably wolves under the garb of sheep, or sheep under the garb of wolves. So this sums up what is happening. Basically, it's trying to say that a lot of the delegates are sheep, and there are wolves who are trying to manage the debate. Then I thought this is interesting because Ambumani Ramdas, he was a environment minister, union environment minister long back, in NDA. And he has been running a NGO. It's called Pasumai Tayagam in Tamil Nadu. So the Tamil diaspora in Abu Dhabi, they organized a meeting for climate action in Dubai. So they invited him, and I think he was there to discuss climate action. So the diaspora of the Tamil diaspora have taken a step in this direction. Now, this was again a statement made which looked very interesting for me. Once you understand that the solutions are not created to solve the problems. Now, this is what corporates, WHO, all these people are doing. They are, creating solutions to solve the problems, or the problems are being created to implement their solution. I think this is going on, and the debate continues. So when we are discussing nature-based solutions, One Health approach, or nuclear energy or fossil fuel phase down. So we need to clearly see what this statement is telling us. So the evil people, they are, creating problems and then for their solutions. This is what the message comes out of this, and that's happening. Well, there are different views again as since 4 days we have been looking at. So now, even though some 700 to 800 billion dollars have been, uh, uh, sorry, $1 million have been committed, which is very pittance because now the need is in billions and trillions. So they're saying it is peanuts. It's like a mosquito, very small. And then they mentioned taxing big polluters. There was this statement that taxation, international taxation will help. So someone is cautioning taxing big polluters without simultaneously having a regulatory framework to actually force them to decarbonize and without ensuring that they are not going to pass on the tax burden to their consumers. So basically, people think taxing, the taxing the emissions or taxing the polluter will, disincentivize the polluter and they will reduce their emissions. But then we know that unless there is a regulatory framework, it does not happen. And also, they should not be able to pass on the burden to consumers. If they pass it on, it's not a burden for them. And then, someone, this is a very, a very serious comment. It says, now COP, we know COP means Conference of Parties. But this guy says it is he's not he's a climate scientist. He says it's a cabal of oil producers. So that means a group of oil producers, kind of mafia. That's what this Kevin Anderson, climate scientist, is saying. Now, Mia Motley, Barbados PM, when she was talking about international taxation, she says we need to raise the $200 billion from oil and gas sector, $70 billion from international shipping, 40 to $50 billion from international air travelers, and a financial transaction cost. So if we do all this, so we might have enough finance to build resilience. So that's what she is expecting. Now we have a comment from Rishika Pardikar. In fact, she was last year, she was part of one of our webinars. She has traveled to last COP and also she has been doing a lot of international reporting. So she says on COP, we are going in so many questionable directions at COP28. So she has written a lot about it. I'm just picking up her comment. Then we have another journalist from India. He says, the truth is that the ferocity of climate events in 2023 cannot be ignored. The clamor for climate justice by frontline communities cannot be disregarded, and the lack of climate action by a few rich countries cannot be overlooked. So this sums up the kind of sentiment or the mindset which is going on among the civil society participants at COP28. Now, coming to negotiation tracks, now there are 27 draft negotiation texts. So most of them are still in the beginning stage. So I'm not going to, I don't have even substantial points to discuss from this negotiation text. But then importantly, one in Article 6.4 carbon markets, there is this mention of emissions avoidance and conservation enhancement. So these are the kind of words which are used, which are very unclear. So negotiations, most of this discussion they are still grappling with this kind of words. And eventually this is pushed by developed countries and countries with resources. So sometimes poor countries or developing countries delegate, they feel out of the place because of such discussion. Now, under first global stock take, there is a negotiation track going on what to do with the results coming out of this global stock take. So there, the one of the issues is developing countries are saying we need a process to measure and monitor loss and damage using the biennial transparency reports. So they're saying these we can use this method to monitor loss and damage, but then developed countries are not supporting this. In fact, developing countries are saying we need a common metrics. How do you measure loss and damage? So all those, you have a flood, you have a cyclone. So one is, linking it with the climate change. And second, the damage which is caused by that. How do you measure? How do you quantify? I think all those issues are still on the discussion table. This is, of course, RK Singh, this I mentioned yesterday on nuclear energy. So there was this report by Lancet. Lancet is a health publication. They issued a report on health and climate change. So they're saying extreme weather events are making millions food insecure. That means food is impacted by the extreme weather events. So it could be floods, continuous floods, or extreme rains, or cyclones. And so this repetition and very fast events, many people are not able to access food. So that's what this report is saying. And global climate is increasingly becoming suitable for transmission of life-threatening infectious diseases, making control effort more and more challenging. Again, we are seeing this, even in India, in all around us. Post-COVID, we are seeing a lot of infections growing. Every home, every person is now frequently infected with this life-threatening diseases. And heat-related deaths have also increased between 1990 and 2000 and later part as well. So the health impacts due to climate change and due to the extreme weather events are increasing is this report is telling us. Now tidbits, this is a major issue. Yesterday, COP28 president, he was participating in an online webinar called by a British Organization on Gender and Climate Change. And as part of this interaction, when the anchor, moderator mentioned that about taking responsibility for COP outcome, because she referred to the president being head of oil company. So then she said, you need to phase out fossil fuels. So he responded saying, there is no science behind phase out of fossil fuels. And he said a lot more. Now this has become raised a lot of furor because the International Energy Agency has itself has said we need to phase out fossil fuels. In fact, COP28 president and International Energy Agency and a few agencies yesterday, they talked about this. So the fossil fuels have been identified as the core main cause of climate change, the carbon emission. But then COP28 president says there is no science. So this again is seen as this person promoting or trying to protect oil industry from being pushed for phase out of oil. So I think this statement is going to linger for the next until the COP28 is over, and probably later as well. Prime Minister, when he was in Dubai, he launched a green credits website at our pavilion. Now, interestingly, Food and Agriculture Organization, then Consultative Group on International Agriculture Research, and WHO. These are all UN agencies, and they are organizing several events at COP28. So they are pushing certain agenda because they are sponsored by a certain foundation. In fact, FAO has signed a MOU with a coalition of seed and pesticide companies. I think 2 years back, and there have been protests. They said it's a mere MOU, but I think FAO mandate is again being pushed by some corporates, is what we can see. Interestingly, we see the Good Food Institute. Good Food Institute is a US-based company. They are producing this lab meat, cultured meat. That's what they say. So they organized an event yesterday at COP28, which says unleashing the power of alternative proteins for climate resilience and food security. So it's obvious that they are pushing lab meat as an alternative to the reduced carbon emissions from the live meat. So I think again there could be two camps in that, and there will be a lot of discussion generated on this. So there was this comment by Dr. Alex. He said the size of COP28 is affecting negotiation. As we have seen yesterday, there are more than 1 lakh people at COP28. Unlike previously in Sharm el Sheikh, it was somewhere around 40,000. So this is almost double or triple. So he says there is not enough space is not there because of security concerns. Many delegates could not reach their venue on time. Many discussions had to be cancelled, meetings had to be cancelled. So even the arrangements, management of supplying documents or so various things have been pointed out as they are not working properly. And many delegates are complaining that this is looking like a very problematic venue. This is a daily program, as I mentioned yesterday. So just to recap that these 27 texts will be discussed as part of these meetings. So I'll stop here in English, and I'll just quickly sum up in Telugu. నిన్న రెండు ముఖ్యమైన సమావేశాలు జరిగాయి COP28లో దుబాయ్లో. ఒకటేమో ఆరోగ్యం మీద, క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్కి ఆరోగ్యానికి ఉన్న సంబంధం ఉన్నది, దీని మీద పనిచేయాలని ఒక డిక్లరేషన్ నిన్న 123 దేశాలు సంతకాలు చేసినాయి. అయితే ఇందులో అనేక విషయాలు డిక్లరేషన్లో ఉన్నాయి, కానీ ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ ప్రమోట్ చేస్తున్న వన్ హెల్త్ అప్రోచ్ అనేది ఇందులో ప్రస్తావించారు. వన్ హెల్త్ అప్రోచ్ అంటే వ్యవసాయం, అంటే ఆహార ఉత్పత్తి, వ్యవసాయము, తర్వాత పాడి పంట, పశు సంపద, వీటన్నిటినీ ఒక 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 దిక్కున ఒక టెక్నాలజీ పరంగా, ఒక ఉత్పత్తి విధాన పరంగా అది కంట్రోల్ చేసే విధంగా వన్ హెల్త్ అప్రోచ్ ఉంది. అయితే ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ అదేమి ప్రజలు ఎన్నుకున్న సంస్థ కాదు. రెండోది అది ఆరోగ్యం గురించి పనిచేయాలి. కానీ వీళ్ళు ఏంటంటే ఆరోగ్యం ఆహారం వలన సమస్య వస్తుంది కనుక మనము దాని గురించి కూడా పనిచేయాల్సి వస్తుందని వాళ్ళు చెప్పి అసలు అక్కడ ఆ విధానాలను మార్చడానికి ఈ ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ పనిచేస్తున్నది. ఇది చాలా తీవ్రమైన ఆందోళనకరమైన సమస్య. ఎందుకంటే ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ, ఐక్యరాజ్య సమితి సంస్థల్లో ఒక భాగస్వామి సంస్థ. అనేక సంస్థలు ఉన్నాయి, ఇది ఒకటి అందులో. సో వీళ్ళు ఇప్పుడు ఈ విధానాన్ని కొంత మార్చే ప్రయత్నము, అంటే ఆయా దేశాల విధానాలను మార్చడానికి ఈ సంస్థ ప్రయత్నం చేస్తుంది. అంటే అధికారం తెచ్చుకుంటుంది, అధికారం కొరకు పనిచేస్తున్నట్టు కనపడుతుంది. కాకపోతే ఈ సంస్థకు నిధులు ఎవరు ఇస్తున్నారు, ఈ సంస్థను నిర్దేశిస్తుంది ఎవరు అనే ప్రశ్న ఉంది. అది మనకు 80% ప్రైవేటు ఫౌండేషన్ల నుంచి వాళ్ళకి నిధులు వస్తున్నాయి, మనం చూస్తున్నాం. అది తర్వాత నిన్న ఈ ఫైనాన్స్ మీద కూడా చాలా కార్యక్రమాలు జరిగాయి. తర్వాత టాక్సేషన్ మీద సమావేశాలు జరిగాయి. అయితే డిసెంబర్ 1, 2 ఈ ప్రపంచాధినేతలు వచ్చిన సందర్భంలో అనేక చర్చలు మొదలు కాలేదు. సెక్యూరిటీ పరంగా చాలా మంది ఏమీ చేయలేకపోయారు. కాకపోతే నిన్నటి నుంచి దాదాపు 27 ఈ చర్చ కొరకు ఏవైతే టెక్స్ట్, అంటే ఆ ప్రతిపాదనలు ఉంటాయో అవన్నీ నిన్నటి నుంచి కొద్దిగా ఒక క్రమబద్ధంగా చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నట్టు కనపడుతుంది. అయితే 27 ప్రతులు మనం చూస్తున్నాం. బహుశా ఇంకో 10 రోజుల్లో వీటి మీద ప్రగతి సాధిస్తారు అనుకుంటున్నాను. ఎందుకంటే రోజు దాని మీద కూర్చొని మాట్లాడుతున్నాం. ఇది కాక ఇంకా COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ మీద నిన్న ఒక సీరియస్ కామెంట్ వచ్చింది. ఎందుకంటే ఆయన ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించాలి, శిలాజ ఇంధనాల వినియోగం మీద ఈ COP28 నుంచి ఒక స్పష్టమైన ప్రకటన రావాలని ఒత్తిడి ఉంది. ఒత్తిడి నేపథ్యంలో ఒక మీటింగ్ లో ఒక ఆమె అడిగితే COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ అన్నారు, ఇది అసలు దీనికి శాస్త్రీయత లేదు, ఇది శాస్త్రీయంగా రుజువు కాలేదు, క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ శిలాజ ఇంధనాల వల్లనే జరిగిందనే దానికి శాస్త్రీయ ఆధారాలు లేవని ఆయన ప్రకటించారు. సో దీని మీద కూడా ఇప్పుడు అన్ని వర్గాల్లో ఆందోళన వస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే ఇది కేవలం ఒక వ్యక్తి, ఒక స్వతంత్ర సంస్థ నుంచి వచ్చింది కాదు. అనేక దేశాలు ఒప్పుకున్నాయి. ఇప్పటికే యూరోపియన్, ఐరోపా కూటమి కూడా ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించాలని వాళ్ళు కూడా అంటున్నారు. తర్వాత ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఎనర్జీ ఏజెన్సీ అంటుంది. సో ఇవన్నీ ఉన్న నేపథ్యంలో ఈ ఒక ఆయిల్ కంపెనీకి అధ్యక్షుడైన COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఇలా అనడము కేవలము ఆ ఆయిల్ ఇండస్ట్రీ, అంటే పెట్రోలియం ఇండస్ట్రీని కాపాడడానికే ఆయన ఇట్లా మాట్లాడుతున్నాడని వచ్చింది. దాంతో అసలు COP28 లో ఏమన్నా ప్రగతి వస్తుందా లేదా అనే అనుమానాలు కూడా ఇప్పుడు పెరుగుతున్నాయి. నిన్నటి స్టేట్మెంట్ వలన ఆయన న్యూట్రల్ గా ఈ చర్చలు కొనసాగించే అవకాశం ఇస్తాడా లేదా అని కూడా అనుమానాలు వస్తున్నాయి. అయితే ఇది ప్రశ్నలకు తావు పెట్టలేదు, కానీ ఒక ప్రశ్న వచ్చింది. ఈ కార్బన్ రిడక్షన్ ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ స్ట్రాటజీస్, ఇప్పుడు అదే అసలు మొత్తము కార్బన్ ఎమిషన్స్, అంటే మనం కార్బన్ ఎమిషన్స్ ఎట్లా తగ్గించాలి అనడానికి 3 దారులు ఎప్పటి నుంచో ఉంటుంది. ఒకటేమో మనము ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాల ఉపయోగం తగ్గించాలి. అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఏదైతే కొనసాగుతున్న శక్తి ఉత్పత్తి ఉందో, అది బొగ్గు కానీ, పెట్రోల్ డీజిల్ వాడకం కానీ, ఇవన్నీ తగ్గించాలి. తగ్గిస్తేనే మన కార్బన్ ఎమిషన్ తగ్గుతుంది అనేది ఒకటి ఉంది. దాని మీద ఎప్పటి నుంచో ఒత్తిడి కూడా ఉంది. రెండోది ఏంటంటే కార్బన్ ఏదైతే గాలిలో ఉందో దీన్ని పట్టుకొని, అంటే ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ గా టెక్నాలజీ పరంగా కార్బన్ క్యాప్చర్ టెక్నాలజీస్ అని, ఇది సైన్స్, ఈ టెక్నాలజీ ఉందని దాన్ని ప్రమోట్ చేసే కంపెనీలు కూడా ఉన్నాయి. ఇక మూడోది మనకు ఇది ఎట్లా తగ్గిస్తామంటే, మీరు మనం ఏదైతే ఎనర్జీ శక్తి తీసుకుంటామో లేదా వస్తువులు తీసుకుంటామో వీటిని ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలు కాకుండా మనం ప్రత్యామ్నాయ ఇంధనం వాడడం ద్వారా మనం ఇట్లా తగ్గించుకోవచ్చు అని ఇట్లా 4-5 ఆప్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. అన్నీ కూడా ఇప్పుడు చర్చల్లో నడుస్తుంది. కాకపోతే అది ఇప్పుడు ఇందులో 2 వస్తున్నాయి కాపులో. కాపు ఒక నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంది. దీన్ని అమలు చేయాలంటే దేశాలు ఒప్పుకోవాలి అది. అంటే ఇది చట్టంగా మారడం లేదు మనకి. ఎందుకంటే ప్రపంచ ప్రభుత్వం లేదు మనకు. ప్రపంచ ప్రభుత్వం అంటూ లేదు. సో ఇది అందరూ కలిసి నిర్ణయం తీసుకొని దాన్ని అమలు చేయాల్సింది. ఒకవేళ రేపు పొద్దున దాన్ని ఒక చట్టం చేశారు, కన్వెన్షన్ లీగల్లీ బైండింగ్ చేస్తే ఆ పర్యావసానాలు అంటే ఆ మార్పుకి ఆయా దేశాల్లో ఉండే పర్యావసానాల గురించి చర్చించినాకనే దాని అమలు గురించి కూడా చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది అనేది ఉంది. అది నేను కూడా ఒప్పుకుంటాను. ఎందుకంటే ప్రజాస్వామ్యంలో మనము ఒక ఒక పరిష్కారం అని అనుకుంటాం కదా, ఆ పరిష్కారం వలన సాధారణ ప్రజలు, ఆదివాసీలు, తర్వాత వాయిస్ లేని వాళ్ళు, వీళ్ళందరూ కూడా నేరుగా దాని వలన ప్రభావితమయ్యే అవకాశం ఉంది. కాబట్టి ఏ పరిష్కారమైనా కూడా అందరూ చర్చించుకొని దాని విధి విధానాలు, దాని రూపము అవన్నీ మాట్లాడుకుంటేనే అది ముందుకెళ్తుంది. సుస్థిరంగా పరిష్కారం ముందుకెళ్ళే అవకాశం ఉంటుంది. సో అవన్నీ కూడా ఇందులో భాగమే. కాకపోతే ఇప్పుడు ఈ కాప్లో ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్ ఫేజ్ డౌన్, ఇప్పుడు ఒక గ్లాస్గోలో ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్ ఫేజ్ డౌన్ అనే పదం వాడింది. ఫేజ్ డౌన్ బదులు ఫేజ్ అవుట్ అన్నారు ముందు, కానీ దాన్ని భారతదేశమే దాని ఫేజ్ డౌన్ అన్నది. భారతదేశం ఏమంటుంది, 2 ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్స్ అంటే కేవలం బొగ్గు గురించి మాట్లాడకండి, మీరు అన్ని ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్స్ మాట్లాడండి అని భారతదేశం అంటుంది. తర్వాత ఫేజ్ డౌన్ అంటే బేసికలీ మన ఎంత తగ్గించుకోవాలి, ఎట్లా తగ్గించుకోవాలి అనేది ఆయా దేశాలు నిర్ణయించుకోవాలనేది వారు చెప్తున్నారు. ఎందుకంటే అంతర్జాతీయంగా కార్బన్ బడ్జెట్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు కార్బన్ ఏదైతే పెరిగిందో దానికి ఎక్కువ శాతము దాన్ని కాంట్రిబ్యూట్ చేసింది, దోహదం చేసింది అభివృద్ధి చెందిన దేశాలు. అంటే 100 రూపాయలు ఉంటే 80 రూపాయలు వాళ్ళే తీసుకున్నారు. ఇప్పుడు మనని మీరు ఏం చేయొద్దు, మీరు అభివృద్ధి చెందొద్దు అంటున్నారు. కాబట్టి కార్బన్ బడ్జెట్లో మాకు కూడా భాగం ఉంది, మీరు తగ్గించుకోండి, కానీ మమ్మల్ని కూడా అదే స్థాయిలో తగ్గించుకోండి అంటే కరెక్ట్ కాదనే వాదన అభివృద్ధి చెందిన దేశాల నుంచి వస్తుంది. సో ఇది ఈరోజు సమీక్ష. మళ్ళీ రేపు కలుసుకుందాం. మీకు ఏమైనా ప్రశ్నలు కానీ ఏమైనా ఉన్నా మనం డైరెక్ట్గా ఫోన్లో మాట్లాడుకోవచ్చు, లేదా నాకు ఈమెయిల్ చేయండి. ధన్యవాదాలు.